Okay, then we can start. So welcome everyone. Today we have here Joachim Forsgren, who is a KI alumnus and currently works for the Innovative Medicine Initiative. And he is based in Uppsala and part of the Ethics Advisory Board. So thank you so much for joining us. We already have collected some questions from the audience, but first, I think Joachim will give us like an overview about this initiative and share his experience in it. But then I'm also give the word to Megan from KI Alumni Office.
Who do you want to go first?
Okay, now I've unmuted myself. Yes, hello everyone. My name is Megan Osler, and if you haven't been to one of these lunch and learns before, the ISPOR team has organized several where we've had the very great pleasure to invite one of our esteemed alumni. And Joachim and I haven't had the pleasure of meeting in person before, but he reached out to me after a post that I published in one of the alumni newsletters that he had some of the experience that the ISPOR team was looking to share with students. So I connected him with the team, and they have worked together to build up this lunch and learn with you today. So great to have you all here. I encourage you to put on your cameras just so Joachim feels like he has an audience. Thanks again, Joachim, for being part of this alumni series.
Thank you very much, Megan. Thanks very much, Carla, and thanks everyone for joining. This is a little bit of a hobby horse of mine to share knowledge and experience because it has been of a tremendous benefit to myself over the years. And now that I have time also to engage with different initiatives like this one, I do it with pleasure. So but I don't know if everything is going to be perfect, probably not. So I'm very happy to also get feedback afterwards if you don't mind. This is the first time I join something arranged by the alumni, but I actually been in something called the KI Junior Faculty several years ago. And my other hobby horse is that the sharing is done across, I mean, basically everything. All human domains are of interest, I think, in life. But for me, it has been specifically around clinical medicine. That was where I started. And then clinical and some clinical research, but then also industry development. Because my background is that I started to study medicine in France once upon a time, did the first part, and then my clinical stages over in Sweden. And then I got a specialty in ENT, ear, nose, and throat at what's now called the Southern Karolinska, which we called Huddinge Hospital, where I also did my PhD in microbiology. I was interested in local immunity in kids with recurrent otitis, ear inflammation. So I did that back in the 90s. I had my thesis in 94. And then a couple of years later, I joined AstraZeneca in their R&D and has been involved in basically all their areas of research, mostly neuroscience then. But then from that position, AstraZeneca was one of the companies that actually engaged heavily in the Innovative Medicines Initiative. And that's how I got involved at first with that. And I had a role in sort of the build-up of that from the AstraZeneca side. Then I left the company, or retired, if you like, some 5.5 years ago, but then joined a small biotech in KI Science Park, and then actually had the pleasure of enjoying some of the benefits of IMI hands-on, things that we have been working with then. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later, but that was also why I like the initiative. I don't know how much you know about it, but I'll just sort of have the starting point that you don't know that much. So I try to be basic, but as we said, there will be questions later. So coming to what is IMI, I mean, if you have had time to look at the homepage, their website, they have a mission statement there. And I will just read that because it's pretty hefty. We are an European Union public-private partnership funding health research and innovation, working to improve health by speeding up development and patient access to innovative medicines, particularly in areas where there is an unmet medical or social need. So that's the first bullet, and it's really sort of condensed in everything that we want to achieve by this initiative. And how? It's by facilitating collaboration between key players involved in health research, universities, research centers, pharmaceutical and other industries, small and medium-sized enterprise with the acronym SME that you probably heard of, patient organizations, and medicines regulators. So this is absolutely huge. And as they then also state, this is the world's biggest public-private partnership in life sciences. Because there is a history to a very big initiative in the US also, hosted by FDA, the NIH and so on, called the critical path, where there has been the kind of same objectives. But this is the European sort of initiative, and the sort of big stakeholders that are putting in money to this is the EU, so it's your tax money that goes in here, and then it's from the big pharma industries joined under the European Federation of Pharmaceutical Industries, an association called FPA that you probably heard of. It's called Pharma in the US, and then it is the regulators. So I mean, we have both sort of the money from the Commission, but also the EMA, the European Medicines Agency, and the people in the different agencies in the different countries. And from the outset, the dollars going in, or sorry, the euros going in here has been around 5 billion euros budget for, I mean, the number of projects is a little bit shifting. Today, it's around 170 projects with 500 participants and to date 7,000 project outputs. And I would like to add sort of a personal slate on this is that it's also, I mean, very politically important. The way it was started was to, I mean, do all these great things that's said in the mission statement, but also to show that Europe is an attractive place to be for life science research and business development. So it's a big initiative to, I mean, create the European market as a very sort of innovative, lucrative and attractive one. And then, as I said before, I was involved from sort of the big pharma end and when we set it up. And I will spare you all those details because, of course, as you can imagine, there were quite a few, as we say, Swedish childhood disease or growing pains in English, because all of this has been administered, and you can, I mean, imagine trying to join universities from Italy, Spain to Norway, or across Europe, together with all the industries in FPA, together with all the regulators, and set up sort of a framework for how to manage to have control over what's going on. How do you, I mean, how do you get into this? How do you measure the dollars people are contributing? Because it's not only about dollars in sort of money you can touch, it's also in-kind contributions, which was very much what the industry did. both dollars, but also that manpower, woman power going into this, the hours that had to be counted and so on. So, but I think very much of this has been coming into some kind of business as usual. So it's smoothly running. And if you explore the sites, you can see a lot of this, how it's quite nimble the way you can get hold of information in here and get clear views on what's going on, what are the outputs, what are the criteria, and which projects they are, and so on. From my own horizon, again, since what I did in AstraZeneca was that I started out as a physician in R&D, in research and development, but eventually sort of moved up the ladder to become the global head for the company for patient safety and pharmacovigilance. And there was a big objective or large wish to create much more around safety in industry, because, I mean, when we talk about the cost of developing new medicines, it's because of all the failures, of course, and safety reasons are very common in that you cannot continue a project any longer because it's not safe, or you have too much considerations that it will not be very feasible for patients to take them. So tools to sharpen the way we can predict failure or not. I mean, things can be stopped for the wrong reasons as well. So there was a huge initiative around setting up safety biomarkers and other tools to predict safety. And that was really, really interesting. In a second, I'll show you, or in a minute, I'll show you sort of a tabular format of what's sort of condensed areas of what's going on in there. But this was a very important one for, I mean, the business, for IMI, but also for myself. And that has a little bit of a funny twist to it as well, because what IMI eventually decided to focus on were liver side effects, hepatic failure, or medicines that would be dangerous for the liver, so to speak, which is the most common side effect that will stop a project. And then also renal side effects and also vascular side effects. Those three were prioritized in something called SAFE-T, where AstraZeneca joined, and Novartis, a lot of, I mean, basically all the big ones. And over the years, they actually came to deliver panels of biomarkers that eventually were showed to be very useful in predicting, for instance, liver injury before it was irreversible. The same, and that's the important thing. I mean, if you can control, if you get biomarkers, then you can monitor. And if you also can monitor things early on before things are starting to get irreversible or you really have injury. If you just have sort of organ adaptation or that's totally different situation, because then you can move on. Before, when things were not sort of possible to predict, you just had to stop because it was not controllable. But then, as I said, I left AstraZeneca to do a lot of things in the sabbatical, but then belonged back to pharma and joined a small biotech company that actually was going to launch one of their assets into phase 1 for the first time, which is a very, very exciting and slightly, well, sometimes too exciting even, because going from preclinical, from labs and animals and so on to actually giving it to human beings can be a bit scary. But then, I mean, it's a whole business in doing that translation and a whole lot of regulations that will help you to do it, I mean, in the safest possible way. But it turned out that the asset had some liabilities, that it had some preclinical findings that were a little bit worrying around kidney. And nobody really wanted to take it to the market because they didn't really know what's going to happen. But thanks to that, I had delivered these safety biomarkers. We could go into first in man and monitor with the aid of those, and show that we have not even sort of adaptive response. It was totally an animal thing that had to do with their way of metabolizing the drug, and it was totally safe for the kidneys in humans. So that was a tremendous success story for us. But later on, unfortunately, we run into some liver trouble. But then again, we had, thanks to IMI, but that was also in the US, a joint effort together with the Critical Path there that had developed a whole, I mean, you could almost say an industry, a new company that has started for drug-induced liver toxicity, DILI as it's called. And they could help us immediately. And again, we could show that this had to do with some immunological way the drug was also affecting liver circulation, and it was not really liver toxicity. So again, we were saved by IMI. And so that was pretty nice, actually. I think we can move over to look at what the projects look like. So if I can get this to work again and share my screen. So can you see the project's fact sheet now?
Yeah, we can see it.
Say some nod. I don't hear anything. Yeah, good. Because you say that when we go to this site, I've sort of collated what's under those drop-down menus, so you get them in one slide. So you can see that this column here, I don't know if you see my mouse pointer, but this left column here, which is called Tools Resources to Improve Drug Development, there are 19 of those. So the first one is around tools to predict or monitor efficacy. And the second one is around safety. And that's the one I talked about a lot around biomarkers and so on. And then you got clinical trial design, conducting clinical trials, digital health, biobanks, clinical networks, stem cells. And here I've put this one in bold here because there was a question beforehand around if there are patient involvement, patient preferences. So this is the answer, yes. Here's one of those. Big data, real world evidence, I think maybe a bit close to what you are interested in. So that's in here. Education and training. There is there's quite an advanced course in pharmacovigilance in there, and so on. So you got, regulatory and HTA, health technology assessment, maybe of particular interest to you as well, environmental aspects, and so on. So here are those tools. And then next column are the disease areas that are prioritized. You can see here antimicrobial resistance. And that's where I actually ended up most recently, because as Carla said, I'm not actually based in Uppsala, but that project around antimicrobial resistance has got its home in, or the leader is sitting at the Uppsala University. And then you got a whole host of different disease areas under here, osteoarthritis, cardiovascular, and so on. That you see that whole list. They happen to be 19, and that's just by hazard, so to say, by chance. And then some of these are grouped together also under programs. But I mean, there's nothing new here, but there is a combination of new drugs for bad bugs that it will include antimicrobial resistance and so on. Ebola plus and big data for better outcomes and so on and so forth. And then products and status, whether they're ongoing or closed, whether there are IMI or IMI2 calls is really interesting. It's just that historically IMI1 was first, of course. And as I said, I will share my notes in this slide, so you'll have it. But all of these are under the drop-down menus anyway. So if this works now, we can look at them. So stop share and share again. This time So can you see this one? Can you see the
Yes.
project
Yeah.
fact sheet?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, and the way this page is organized is, I mean, as you can see here, if you press IMI up here to the left, you will always get to the main page. And then you have all of these sort of subheadings here, objectives, blah, blah, blah here, get involved, apply for funding, different calls, and so on, news and event. You can subscribe to newsletter where you get the latest from a particular project and so on. Here we are with the projects sheet, and when you press that one here, project fact sheet, you will get the view that you have in front of you. So here you can put in whatever and look at what you want to search for, but otherwise, here are the choices you can make. So status, as I said, it's only about whether it's ongoing or closed, so you can just choose any, or if we just look at ongoing, which is perhaps most relevant. The others are more there for history if you want to read about them. But if you want to engage, you should choose ongoing. And then call is just any. I mean, I don't know which are still ongoing from call one, but never mind. Just put any. Programs, just put any. And then disease area. I mean, if we look at, well, I can get a suggestion where I found something around, let me see here, respiratory disease, that one, and real world data, for instance, don't know, any product, and here you see the drop down, it's exactly the headings that is on my slide, the headings that are on the slide there. So if we take yeah, regulatory and HTA processes, for instance. So there we are, ongoing, respiratory disease, regulatory, and HTA, and then just press search. And then we get this one. You can still see it, rescue, and it's Respiratory Syncytial Virus Consortium in Europe. And as you can see down here, there are others that belong to this infectious disease and so on and so on. But this is the way it works. You got your respiratory disease here, you got your regulatory and HTA here. And then just press this one, and you will get sort of facts and figures, where it started, a summary of it all, achievement and news. It's all their own project website. They're on Twitter, apparently. FBA companies, AstraZeneca is there, all of these guys. And up here you got a contact if you want to reach out to them. And here, yeah, you can move on from here. But that's the way it looks, these very handy project fact sheets that you can move on from. And here I think actually that I saw Karolinska somewhere. Yeah, and yeah, and you can do this for another one. Sorry, yeah.
Sorry, yeah, I just wanted to jump in with a question, because I think this is super interesting that all the information is out here, and thank you for showing us how to navigate. And do you think it's possible to reach out to those that are running these projects if one might be interested in like knowing more, or even maybe like giving contribution or something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I mean, that question was also submitted, and this one has to be answered at several levels, because, I mean, you can get involved in many ways. I think that the calls, that we talked about, the different calls that were set up is something for companies, basically. It's not really for the, I mean, it could be an individual researcher or a small, medium-sized enterprise, but otherwise, these are, I mean, the ongoing calls that are in there. But then if you are a company that want to get involved there, then, I mean, you get to the to the leader for that project. And I would say it's the same at the individual level. I mean, the first thing I would do if I'm sort of a student, then I would look around here, find, I mean, more facts about where are they? I mean, where are they based? Is it still, I mean, some time before they have their end date? For this one, for instance, here is this year, and so on. So you probably, I mean, based on your interest, I will start with what you're interested in, but then look at what are the other data? I mean, are they about to finish, or are there still some time left? And then what is the thing you want to contribute with, or do you want to get into, I mean, to the research together with them? Then I would just mail the contact person, or if you can see some local or other contacts that you already have, obviously that's going to be the way to go. I think, I mean, there are a huge number of people at the Karolinska who are involved in various projects. So to find out more about who to contact, and not necessarily the leader only, but I mean, to hear more about how things are going and so on. I don't know if that answers your question, but I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
I
Thanks.
have done this myself, so it's going to be, I think it's going to be really sort of an exploration expedition for you. But I'm sure that there will be opportunities for interested people who want to join in and do hands-on research, take on tasks and so on.
Yeah, thanks. No, it's great. Yeah.
No, I think that was a fantastic segue to the end, because I only had, maybe, I mean, you could look at Karolinska yourself, put it in there and look what comes out, and then getting involved, question mark, was my last bullet actually. So great.
Yeah, great. Thanks. And so maybe we can get started with some questions. Thank you for explaining about the initiative. I think it's very interesting, and we can maybe start with a question that we received from a student about patient preferences. So basically, she was asking about patient preferences information. Is this considered for innovative medicines? So I guess for like maybe prioritization criteria or in the projects that are selected.
Yes, I think if I can go back to my other slide here and share that one. Is it in screen again, this project fact sheet?
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, that's, if I understand the question right, it's about tools, resources to improve drug development. So that is definitely patient involvement here, this one. Because, I mean, it could be this one as well, real world evidence data. It's a little bit, I mean, what do you mean by this and that? In real world data, I mean, the way I have encountered it, it has been done by industry, but there also, when I was still in industry, was quite a few organizations that are started out. Patients like us, for instance, they started out with multiple sclerosis, but they have enormous databases now for various diseases where patients themselves are putting in data and so on, and they are creating databases for, I mean, the way they will capture information around their life, quality of life, and their symptoms and whatnot. And so this is, I mean, this is a commercial thing now, and they are engaged with various stakeholders that want to do clinical trials via CROs, contract research organizations, or, I mean, big pharma that want to explore sort of more of the everyday experience of asthma patients, for instance. So that one, patient involvement here, which could be patient-reported outcomes, things like that, of course, and more sophisticated tool these days. And real-world data is maybe, you can, I don't know, I mean, I think you know more about this than I do, but I mean, this might be sort of a step up in the hierarchy in terms of how it's organized. But that's definitely involving, I mean, the user, so to speak.
Yeah, thanks. I think it answers the question. And then we have a second question about startups and small and medium enterprises. So the question is, what support is provided to them, and how do you identify their innovation? So, like, what is their role also within the initiative? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, that's a question that also has to be answered at different levels. I mean, one is that you have a small mid-size, or you have a small enterprise, you have a small company, you have an idea, and you have set up a company of a few people, and you want to develop an idea. And I have encountered especially one of those through the initiative that I'm engaged with, Enable, in Uppsala, around finding new ways of treating or handling gram-negative infections with multi-resistant organisms. And this is a small Swiss company that started around an idea about a type of antibiotic that they believe they could modify and then make it resistant to many of these multi-resistant gram-negatives that cause lethal urinary tract infections and pulmonary infections and so on. And they applied to IMI to get help in Enable, and they got help both in terms of money to hire people, to also engage contract research organization once they got that far, so that they wanted to go into man, and they also get involved with mentors and helpers like myself, because I'm engaged in an ethical committee, but we did much more than that when they were about to approach first time in man. They are excellent preclinical researchers, but they don't know very much about the landscape and the world of doing drug development in man. So here we could help them big time with the designs and what to think about when going to the regulators to get approval for the first in-man trial. So that's kind of an in-kind, with our hours, our knowledge, sharing that and helping them design their trials and so on. So that's a way that small and medium-sized companies can get help. They don't have to pay for it. And the other part of the question was how do you measure it? They have to report. So with their project plans, they need to report back on their progress, and then eventually publish everything and publish, at milestones as well as papers when they have results and so on. And that goes into IMI and into the scientific literature, of course.
Yeah, thanks. That's great. And I think now I have a question more about the program and the project you are involved in at the moment. So new drugs for bed bugs, and which is about antimicrobial resistance. And so I was wondering if you could explain a bit, like, what is the ultimate purpose of this research project, and yeah, how does it work? At what point are you in?
Yes, I have not refreshed the numbers, but as you probably know, antimicrobial resistance is a huge health problem, because many of the drugs that we have thought had sort of solved difficult infections, they don't work anymore. Sweden has been one of the countries that have been really restrictive with antibiotic use, but in other countries, antibiotics are used very liberally, even in Europe. But then in countries like India, you can just go into any pharmacy, or there might not even be a pharmacy, and buy broad spectrum antibiotics that you wouldn't dream of, even sort of at the Vård Central here in Sweden. And this has created strains that are especially then in vulnerable people. So, and they are spreading at hospitals and so on, and elderly people with immune deficiency or low resistance. So, the strategies here are multifold. Obviously, it's about trying to put in measures so you're not using antibiotics so liberally, and hygiene of classical types and so on, the well, all of that. Then there is, in the end of actually trying to find new medicines, it's about understand what's happening at the in the microbial genome and how they actually evade the immune system. So there are I mean, various ways of trying to find totally new antibiotics, new classes, and that's very much in the preclinic. And in the case where I'm involved, one is sort of a chemical modification of an aminoglycoside that is well, so far been shown to be resistant. But this is a very difficult fight because bugs have this tremendous genetic potential to shift the way they present themselves and how they. But that's ongoing. In that way. So that one is more around sort of the chemical structure and the preclinical work. The way how I contribute is to help them with clinical development, something that they don't have much or no experience in, because yeah, that's sort of a field in itself with many pitfalls. I don't know if that answers your question, but I think you have to look into the project or into the sort of this program to get more specific information, because I don't know all of this. There is actually tuberculosis is in there as well, and as you may or may not know, that's something that's been with pestering humankind probably forever, and we're probably going to live with it forever. It has a lot to do with, I mean, the nutritional level of people. So it's not only about finding antibiotics, it's about hygiene and social standards and things like that. And I mean, other parts of the world, if you haven't been there, you can probably not imagine what the measures are about, rather than changing chemical structures, about access to healthcare and how do you make people take the medicines that you give. And so it's, I mean, it's around understanding the patient environment where it's needed.
Well, thank you so much. And I think it was really interesting to listen in to your experience. And I think now we are running out of time. So thank you everyone for joining. And just a quick preview of our next events. So basically we are a student association based at Karolinska. And for this semester, we organize 3 series of events. Some of us also together with the KI Alumni Office and Megan. So just feel free to take a screenshot of this page or go to our Facebook page, and you will have more details about each of these events. Yeah, and that's it. So I would thank again Joachim for joining us, and everyone for being here with us. So yeah.
Thanks for having me. And I mean, if there are questions that will come later on, if they are funneled to you, Carla, then I could try to respond to them.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Also, yeah. And we will also share this meeting on Facebook so that people can watch it and maybe come up with more questions afterwards. So yeah, sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And have a good day, everyone.
Thank you very much, Joachim. Great job, ISPOR team.
Thanks, Megan. Bye-bye.